Lebanon faces a decisive test. The government meets on September 5th to debate disarming Hezbollah, a demand pushed by Washington and Gulf allies and resisted by the Iran-backed group despite heavy losses to Israel. The standoff has split Lebanon's cabinet, triggered new Israeli strikes, and left the country on the brink of paralysis. With ministers threatening walkouts and foreign aid at risk, Beirut is running out of time. Lebanon's government is set to discuss a plan on September 5th for disarming Hezbollah, a critical juncture in a standoff between the Iran-backed group, which is refusing to give up its weapons, and rival countries and authorities, including Israel, who want it to disarm in line with US demands. Calls for Hezbollah's disarmament have taken centre stage in Lebanon since the group sustained heavy losses in a year-long conflict with Israel. The results of that war, which ended last November, upended a power balance that had long been dominated by the Shiite Muslim group. This year, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, under pressure from the United States, has pushed for Hezbollah to disarm. Israel has said it would withdraw from sites in Lebanon that its troops still occupy if the Lebanese militant group lays down its weapons. But Hezbollah has rejected any move to dismantle its arsenal. That divide has led to tension in the Lebanese government between Hezbollah and an allied political party, Amal on the one hand, and other Lebanese factions, including leading Christian and Sunni politicians. Friday's cabinet session takes place against a backdrop of an escalation in Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon, which killed 4 people on September 3rd, adding to fears in Lebanon of further attacks if Hezbollah does not disarm. The Israel Defense Forces said it targeted a site where Hezbollah stored engineering tools being used for the organization's recovery. Amal's leader, Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri, has insisted that any discussion of disarmament happen without a deadline, a source close to Hezbollah was quoted as saying by Reuters. The Lebanese government said it would come up with a plan to disarm Hezbollah by the end of August. Berri, in an August 31st speech, indicated that the Shiite parties were ready to discuss the fate of Hezbollah's arms, but within the framework of a calm and consensual dialogue. He said it was nationally unacceptable to throw the ball of fire into the lap of the Lebanese army by requiring it to tackle the long taboo issue of Hezbollah arms too abruptly. Long-standing tensions in Lebanon over Hezbollah's arms have sharpened since the Aoun administration, together with Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, tasked the US-backed Lebanese army on August 5th with devising a plan to establish a state monopoly on arms by the end of the year. Meanwhile, the Trump administration warned ahead of the key cabinet meeting in Beirut that Lebanon's leaders are running out of time to disarm the militant group before they risk losing US and Gulf Arab financial support, and even a renewed Israeli military campaign. The warning comes at what US officials call a critical moment in Lebanon's history, as the country's cabinet considers a plan to force the decades-old Iran-backed group to surrender its weapons. The United States, Israel, and the Gulf Arab states are pressuring Lebanon's government to act decisively and not be intimidated by Hezbollah threats to incite violence. With its combustible mix of religious and ethnic tensions and sensitive border with Israel, Lebanon has confounded American presidents since Dwight D. Eisenhower deployed 14,000 American troops there to thwart a feared communist takeover. Ronald Reagan sent 1,200 US Marines to Beirut as peacekeepers during the nation's civil war, only to withdraw them after a Hezbollah suicide bombing in 1983 killed 241 service members. The Trump administration's involvement in Lebanon draws far less attention than its peacemaking efforts in places like Ukraine and Gaza. But with those other efforts stalled, Lebanon may offer a better opportunity for a breakthrough. Such an outcome would make Lebanon more stable and give it a chance to rebuild its stunted economy. Sunni Muslim nations in the region have said they would reward decisive action against Shiite Hezbollah with billions in economic aid. Disarming Hezbollah would also benefit Israel, which has faced years of cross-border attacks. the United Nations Security Council on August 31st voted to begin an orderly and safe drawdown and withdrawal of the 10,000-strong UN interim force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, in 2027 after its extended mandate expires in December 2026. This decision comes after concerted pressure from Israel and the United States, who have long criticised UNIFIL for not only failing to disarm Hezbollah and also providing its positions with cover, an allegation that the UNIFIL has frequently denied. On September 2nd, US envoy to Lebanon, Thomas Barrack floated a proposal for an economic zone in southern Lebanon to facilitate the Lebanese state's efforts to disarm Hezbollah. But that will be easier said than done. According to the Indian Express, in the last 2 decades, Hezbollah successfully leveraged its external raison d'etre, the Israeli threat, to amass disproportionate internal influence in Lebanon's politics and economy, enabled by the inherent weaknesses of the Lebanese state.
Hezbollah's proximity to and support for the government in Beirut has meant that the crisis in Lebanon has significantly dented the group's popularity across ethnic lines. This meant that when the conflict in Gaza heated up in October 2023, Hezbollah was ill-prepared to mount a sustained ground campaign against Israel and restrained itself to carrying out calibrated rocket strikes.
Beirut has been trying to leverage international support, both to rein in Israel's campaign in Lebanon and to bolster the government's reform agenda. Propelled by the loss of $11 billion in the war since last October, shoring up state capacity is a key imperative. In this, Lebanon is backed by its Arab partners, who have a keen interest in undoing Iran-backed Hezbollah's lopsided influence in the country. Western capitals are similarly keen on removing the group's ability to threaten Israel. However, any international plan or framework is contingent on the Lebanese state's actual capacity to disarm Hezbollah and cannot occur without the latter's cooperation. As such, it is hard to see this cooperation coming anytime soon, Abbas noted.
Despite its losses, Israel's continued threat to Lebanon allows Hezbollah to consolidate support internally. Hezbollah now tactfully leverages Israel's aggression in Lebanon's neighborhood to drive home suspicions regarding Israel's assurances of a phased withdrawal and reaffirm its own role as a supplement to the LAF.
Abbas further writes that Hezbollah remains deeply resistant to disarmament, adding that Naim Qassem, the acting leader of the group, rails against what he calls a capitulation to Israel and pledges continued armed resistance. The group retains significant ideological sway and political influence, positioning itself as a protector against Israeli aggression. Lebanon's deeply sectarian political landscape compounds the problem. Hezbollah's exemption from disarmament was written into the Taif Agreement and rests on enduring community support. For many Lebanese, particularly Shia supporters, Hezbollah's weapons symbolize survival. In the wake of the war's destruction, suspicions of Israeli intentions remain, reinforcing its role as a deterrent. Meanwhile, Qassem's August 20th address shed light on the group's self-characterization. One, he asserted that were it not for the resistance, Hezbollah, Israel would have reached Beirut just as it did Damascus, and would have occupied vast areas as it did in Syria. In Lebanon, Hezbollah's role is now greater and more crucial to prevent the occupation, Israel, from securing any stability, he said. Note that despite the Israeli onslaught, Hezbollah continues to maintain a sizable portion of its armament and organization. 2, he redefined Hezbollah as not a state army, but a supporter of the national army. It is not a substitute for the army, yet it backs and assists it, while the army remains the primary institution responsible for defending the nation. Hezbollah's continued unwillingness to disarm despite its weakness, and Israel's continued aggression despite its promised commitments to the Lebanese state, complicate the Lebanon government's ability to effect change. This means that the US approach of forcing a settlement which the actual parties to the conflict are unwilling or unable to embrace is untenable in Lebanon.